YouTube, by the way. You didn't know. Yeah, and those videos are public, so you'd be able to go into YouTube and find it.
Good. It says we're live.
Yes, good. All right, let me get back here. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Today, Nikki French is with me. And Nikki has a lot of background in dogs. She has background in a lot of other fun stuff too. But today we are going to talk about some of the misconceptions and myths that are out there about things that we think we absolutely must do with our dogs that, you know, maybe not so much. Maybe we have other options. So we're going to start chatting about that. And if you're listening on Facebook, or even if you're on Zoom, you can go ahead and put any questions that you have for Nikki in the comments on Facebook, and we will answer them for you. So, hi, Nikki, welcome.
So hi, Marilyn, how are you doing? Yes, I'll try to answer them anyway. I'll give them my best shot.
Yeah, I know, that's right. That's the best I can do. Let's talk about some of these misconceptions. I know you're focused on, because of your book, Stop Walking Your Dog and all of that, you're focused on this whole idea of, taking dogs out for a walk, and the dogs are stressed and the people are stressed, but we keep on doing it. So what's going on with that?
Yeah. I mean, I should say my dog did get a walk today, so I'm not anti-walks completely. I'm not the anti-walk police. I think it's this this misconception that every dog loves their walks, and very often I think people will get a dog because they want a reason to get out 2 or 3 times a day, get some exercise, get some fresh air. What a great reason to get a dog. It'll all be lovely. And I think sort of a traditional walk, whether it's a road walk or walking to a park or taking your dog to a public space to walk them around a park, maybe there's off lead time, whatever that walk looks like in various ways. Actually, it is a bit of a human invention of, we attach a lead to a dog and we make it walk at our pace, which is probably too slow for many of our dogs. And we take them kind of where we want them to go. And, yes, they are getting physical exercise and they may well be getting some sniffing opportunities, but it's not necessarily the best approach for every single dog. And I think it's quite, if people have got a dog that is nervous by any kind of outside issues, whether it's noises, whether it's other dogs, whether it's people, if they do struggle with any of those things, putting them in a situation that they haven't got the skill set to be happy and comfortable with that environment, doing that every day or even several times a day is so stressful for dogs. And I think, if you feel this social pressure that, well, you have a dog, you have to walk them. You absolutely have to walk them. It would be cruel not to walk them. But if somebody says to you, actually, what if you didn't put the dog in that situation every single day or 2 to 3 times a day, and you could do other things with them instead, to give them exercise, to give them mental stimulation, to give them enrichment in all its different forms, what an amazing place that could be. So it's definitely trying to challenge this misconception that all dogs love walks, all dogs should go on walks, and I'd like people to sort of think of that slightly differently of, I have a dog and I might play training games with them, or, this may or may not be on a walk. So sort of kind of detaching what is useful for our dog from it's all about the walk.
Yeah, and I think that 2 important things that you mentioned that, that I want to emphasize and make sure people get this is that the dog has to have the skill set. They're not born understanding what we expect when we attach a leash to them and take them out in public. They have to have that skill set. And the skill set might not be, this restricted, forced, you must walk by my side. It's more, if the dog is not enjoying the walk, then you're probably not enjoying it either. And so, there are other things that you can do. And the other thing I think that is so important is the concept of mental stimulation. Because if you're taking your dog out for a walk and you're constantly having to restrain them and prevent them from doing the things that are so attractive to them out on the walk, like sniffing over there where maybe the bunny rabbit was, during the night, and they're not allowed to do that, and you're putting these boundaries on them, that's not very mentally stimulating for the dog. It's too restricting. So yeah, that those are two things that really stood out for me. So hopefully, that's something that people will grasp onto.
And I think sort of approaching the walk from a different headspace. So for instance, the walk with my dog this morning, he gets very overexcitable. He's not nervous. So but equally he can get very overstimulated by being out too much. And so the walk this morning was short bit of walk, short bit of playtime. And I actually took a dried fish skin chew out with me, take his little settle mat. I sit on a bench, and partway through the walk, we just sit. So the walk isn't always walking. It may well be sitting and watching other people do the walking. So taking
yeah.
So it can look very different depending on what the dog needs.
Right. So thinking outside the box a little bit and not thinking that the walk has to be only this very limited thing, kind of march in. Could be a lot different. I know I'm lucky that I have a lot of property. I live in the country and I have a lot of space around me. So I have different groups of canines in the family, and the little guys I take out separately, and they absolutely love sniff, and sometimes they'll get really zeroed in on focusing on, one particular spot, and I'm going, I wonder what was there that they're so interested in that. But they get their exercise. I'm very fortunate, now I know not everybody can do this, is to take them out off leash and just let them romp and play, because they're in a completely safe area. They're totally reliable. If I'm walking one way and turn around and walk the other way, they go, "Oh, where are you going?" And they come and follow me. So I'm not putting them in an unsafe situation by doing that. And I know everybody can't do that, but I think that there are some versions of that kind of walk that that we can treat our dogs to, that might be, because I'm getting my exercise too. I'm kind of walking around the whole area, and they're like checking in with me. Oh, where'd you go? And that they might kind of run off and explore the horse pasture. And at first I was thinking, no, don't go in there. But they, they go in, they check it out. If the horses are right there, the horses just kind of look at them and go, and get back to eating grass. There are many ways, and in my little structured mentality, which I I'm struggling to branch out of the box myself, but in my structured mentality, I originally thought they can't do this and they can't do that, and I have to manage them, they have to be controlled. And what I'm finding is they're smart enough to figure it out for themselves, of course, in a safe environment. So giving the dogs a little bit of access to space and movement, and still keeping them safe, that's kind of a balance that maybe we should start to think about a little bit, because it kind of frees us up a little bit to stop worrying about, being so controlling, spoken by a control freak. So
I'm with you.
true, yeah, true confession. But if I can move past that, then I think most people can. So what do you think about that, and how do you think that the average person who doesn't, isn't lucky enough to live out in the country with a lot of space, how can they maybe adapt that kind of thing, and what are some of the things that they can do instead of going on those walks to give their dogs a more enriching experience that's more actually more enriching for the human part of it as well. So what are some?
Yeah, I think it very much depends on what the individual dog needs. And, if people live in, relatively urban environments, and if people live in flats, the dogs are going to need to spend more time outside. I'm not for 1 minute saying that people should be having house dogs. But for me, what can be really successful is instead of going straight into a walk, thinking about doing some activities at home to set them up in the best headspace that you can before going out. Say they are not the most confident dog, playing some little confidence building games for maybe just 5 minutes before you go out. So it might be that you shorten up the time spent walking, do some games before you go out, go for some kind of walk, whatever that circuit, whatever spaces are available to you. It might well be that you do something when that you're out on the walk, whether it's sniffing, whether it's some games, whether it's sitting and having a chew, whatever it is. And then also when you come back in, I also like to finish off with some little games at home. Again, whatever it is that they need. It might be we need to go to work. It might be that we need to be working online on Zoom, or we really need our dog to settle down. So expecting them to go from I've been outside, it's really exciting, or it's a bit worrying, or something in between, to expect them to just switch off and go and have a sleep while we want to work is a massive leap. So I think about sort of transitioning dogs from the state that they're in to where they're going, and then where we're wanting them to go back to, can just, I think, make their lives easier and also our lives easier. We do have sometimes unrealistic expectations of going, right, dog, switch off now. Right, that's it. I'm mama's busy now.
I know.
And there are so many activities that you can do to help your dog through whatever it is. But yeah, I think starting a walk before you even get out of the front door and thinking, right, what would be useful for them? Our overexcitable dog, we'd give him a lick mat before we went out, because he needed to try and just get his head a little bit calmer before we went out. So whatever it is that they need, think of the walk not necessarily just being of a walk, but what are we doing with the dog today? What do they need? How can we make this whole experience through the day more enriching for them? And also what works for us. We don't have hours. I don't know about you, but I don't train my dog for hours every day. I don't have time. So it's got to be practical, and it's got to be, easy and time efficient a lot of the time. And I think often people think maybe doing some training games or something like that, oh gosh, that's too hard, or I don't have time. But often, because it's mentally and physically working in lots of different ways, you can spend less time training than you would have done by exercising. In 10 minutes of training games, I could do what easily 30 to 40 minutes of walking my dog would do. And then he's,
Right. I love that, because, I've always said to people, it's the mental exercise that's going to make your dog want to settle down and rest and relax.
Yeah.
Not so much the physical exercise can be very stimulating.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also love the idea of reframing a walk as not just walking out the door, walking around the block or whatever, and then coming back in and you're done, but putting a before and an after. So instead of thinking, oh, I have to take all this extra time to play a game before I take my dog out for a walk, think of it as a part of the walk. I love that idea because it, as you said, it just puts the dog into a good headspace. They're focused, they're calm, they're engaged with you, they're engaged with what they're chewing on or the mat they're licking or something, but all those behaviors are calming.
Mm.
So
And
yeah.
even it can be I mean, I often see people where they say, oh, when I get the harness out, my dog backs away from me. When he's got the harness on, he's fine, he's happy, he's out. But even thinking of little things like that, if there are little bits in the day that your dog struggles with, that's your perfect little, playing some hand touch games, playing some nose targeting in the harness, doing some little games where they're putting their nose into yogurt pots and things like that. You can work on those struggles instead of just thinking, oh, for whatever reason, the dog doesn't want to have their harness on, let's just get it on quickly and just, skirt over it, tackle it. And, so that doesn't have to be a stressful or overly arousing experience for the dog. So little things like that you can build in to be all part of that walk experience.
Yeah, and making every part of that whole experience pleasant for the dog, because if they're backing away, what's going on there? Why are you backing away from the harness? Maybe we're, and I know I've been guilty of this, just too quick. Let's just get this done. And going back to what you said earlier, dogs need time to process things, and so often we're in such a big rush. We got to get this done. We're going out for a walk now, and we don't give the dog time to just take it in, process it, understand what's going on, and say, "Okay, I get it. I'm with you now. Let's go." And because they were maybe taken, off guard a little bit. You didn't give them enough of a signal of what we're going to do, and I like to do it by just telling the dog what we're going to do. Would you like to go for a walk now? Are you ready? You want to go outside? And then when we're outside and we're ready to come in, I'll say to everybody, are you all done now? Is everybody all done? And they'll go, oh yeah, I'm all done. And they'll run back to the house. So it just having, like little words that the dogs recognize that are, part of the whole experience. Like it's a routine that they're comfortable with. So yeah, what are some of the things that we can do to help our dogs be comfortable with the whole routine? And I know you're talking about doing things in the house before and then coming back and doing things. How can we incorporate more fun things into the routine of going for a walk?
I almost want to answer a slightly different question of,
okay.
I'm not a massive fan of routine as such. And I don't think that's quite what the question was, but I'll explain my answer. So I think dogs are so good at connecting all the dots that we don't even know that we're laying out for dogs. They're so good at predicting. Long before we've picked up the harness, we have, put a certain pair of trousers on. We've closed a laptop. We put a coffee mug in the kitchen. Hours before it's happening. Even if it's at different times of day, the dog is clocking all of those things, and they're putting all of those things together. And if they are a dog that is overly worried about a walk or overly excited about a walk, all of that time that they are predicting it's happening long before we goes, do you want to go for a walk, picking up the lead, when it all kind of bubbles over, they are anticipating the walk, anticipating going out, and their levels of arousal are going. So the more actually I think we can break down the routine, the better. But in terms of helping them to get ready to go out, I think it is looking at those little areas that they might struggle with. I see it so commonly of dogs that do back away from putting the harness on. And even to this day, I mean, we've had our rescue dog now. He was 9 when we 9 months old, 8 months old when we got him, and we've had him for 4 years. He's collie cross, and he's a bit weird about having stuff on and near his head. So even to this day, I will have the harness, I'll hold it, and I'll have a piece of food for him 80% of the time, so that he's the one that gets to go, okay, I want my harness on, and I'll pop it on. And if I don't have the piece of food, he does kind of look at me a bit like, what's in it for me? And I think if I didn't do that, he could become more kind of like, I don't really want my harness on. Like, there's no physical reason why not. You know, he does enjoy his walks when he goes out, but he could still get a bit sticky. And I think those things kind of grow. So I think it's what part of it that your dog is maybe a little bit reluctant, or is just getting far too excitable. Break down those bits to kind of break down the routine. So if your dog, when you get a certain pair of boots out, they absolutely lose the plot, I would want to be doing activities that are near the boots, or that you pick the boots up sometimes and you put them down again. And so actually sort of unpicking the routine bits so that it doesn't get them into that massive state of arousal before they've even made it out of the front door. That doesn't even answer your question, I don't think, does it?
Well, that's, I mean, answer whatever. So yeah, I get what you're saying about routine, that we can kind of get stuck in that, and maybe it leads to kind of unrealistic expectations that the dog has to do what I am ready to do at this moment. But that is so true what you said about dogs connecting the dots and we don't even realize it. And I remember back, I don't take my dog to classes anymore, but there was a time when I was taking my one dog, my Papillon Chance, to nose work classes. And that was his favorite thing in the whole world. He loved nose work, and he still goes out and he's constantly sniffing. He doesn't know it isn't nose work. He's just happy to sniff everything. But on the days of the nose work class, he would start to get really wound up way before I was ready to take him out to the car and head out to the class. So it was so interesting to me, because I often wondered, what am I doing that's signaling the dog? Whatever it was, I could never actually figure out the subtle things that happened early on. Of course, at the very last minute, when I'm getting the training back, getting all my stuff and the keys to the car and walking out, I mean, that's obvious. But he would start following me around, being at my heels, jumping on me, barking at me, long before we were ready to go. So I often wondered, how does he know that it's Wednesday and in a couple of hours we're going to go to class?
I think they do get days of the week.
Yeah.
I really do. I know I haven't researched it. I haven't given it deep, but absolutely, we have don't have a routine, but through what my partner does online and what I do online, there are certain days of the week where he might take Bodhi out, and there'll be days of the week that I might take Bodhi out. Sometimes we'll both take Bodhi out, and they do tend to fall into some element of pattern. He knows, and whether in their head they have that awareness of, well, it's not been for 3 days, therefore it's probably now, or it's not. I don't know. I'm someone with far more intelligence than me. Well, may well know, but it seems that they can understand where they are in the week.
Yeah, and that's a really common experience. A lot of people, have that experience that their dog just seems to sense and know things and so forth. And if I have been around other animals, and this happens with everybody, if I've been around other animals, they just can't get enough of sniffing my clothing, my shoes, everything. Where have you been? What have you been doing? And that they're just, it's as if by allowing them to sniff, I'm giving them the whole story of where I've been and what I've done. And I often wonder, it's such an interesting question. Maybe one of these days researchers will really get an answer to that. But how do they put all of this information together and come to a correct conclusion about what's about to happen? It's just so fascinating to me.
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah. And I'm the same. Like, so I feel like I'm walking enrichment when I come back in from seeing some of my face-to-face clients, because I'll have had maybe 2 or 3 dogs that have been, I'm not training with them. I try to keep fairly hands off, but they will have brushed against my legs or my shoes or whatever. And my dog is glued to my legs up and down, like he is drawing a mental picture of where I've been and who I've seen.
Yeah. And we know that the olfactory system of a dog is so complex and so advanced that I mean, they're processing a lot of information just through sniffing, which is that's absolutely fascinating to me. So and when you think about what tracking dogs do, what drug detection dogs do, what medical dogs do, that dogs can sniff out, various diseases in urine samples. When you think about that, they are as reliable as the medical technology, sometimes even more reliable. It is mind-blowing, isn't it? Yeah. And then, we think about taking our dogs out, and back in the old days, we would say, oh, they're not allowed to sniff. We really were not acting in their best interests at that time, even though we thought we were. So no judgment there, because I've been there too, and I know that we do the best we can with what we know, and we are so lucky now that we know so much more. So,
and even, if people have got really dogs that, if we have dogs that can't get out or can't get out as much, whether they're, mature dogs or they're post-op or they're having some kind of recovery, bringing in some sense, whether it's you as a walking enrichment person, or taking some cloths out and rubbing them on some lampposts and things like that and popping them in little Ziploc bags, bringing them home, and then you can set up little scenting areas around the home. It can be incredibly successful to give dogs a scenting experience if they cannot get out of the house for, whatever reason it is.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Someone asked a question in one of our live streams a few days ago. She had a dog that was recovering from surgery and had to be on cage rest as a result. And she felt very, bewildered, because the dog was struggling. It wasn't used to being so confined, but she knew that for his, for health reasons, he had to be. So that's a wonderful way to help a dog that's, going through that. It's a temporary situation, but it's still really important that the dog has to be, activity has to be limited. So that's great.
And thinking what they can do with their sense of smell, because if they're on crate rest, they're also using less calories, and you really don't want to be overfeeding a dog, albeit a lot of the enrichment, you'll think, well, I'll give them chews and I'll be maybe hand feeding them some food, playing some little hand games to try and occupy them in what is a difficult situation. Most dogs have no awareness really that they got a broken leg in a cast. They still want to go and run. So the more we can do that involves sniffing work in that situation, I think is so helpful.
Yeah. It's very underrated, isn't it? For the impact that it can have on the dogs. So yeah, let me just see. Let me just see if we have any questions. I don't see any questions in the Facebooks. So let me just come back here. I've asked a ton of questions so far. Is there any kind of words of wisdom that you would like to leave our viewers with? Because I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be watching this on the replay, in which case, if you are watching the replay and you do want to leave a question, go ahead and put it in the comments, and maybe put like hashtag replay or something. And I'll go in and check. Nikki can go in and check. And I'll let her know if you have any questions, and we can answer them if you're watching, if you put a question in as a result of the replay. But before we wrap it up, Nikki, is there any like parting words of wisdom that you would like to leave with people so that, they feel like Nikki said that and I am going to follow up?
I think no pressure. I think it is just rewiring our own brains about a walk and thinking of it as a circuit of some, and that may well be involving your hallway. If your dog is extremely reactive, not putting them in the situation where they feel the need to react, for me, is just so important. So thinking of the walk as a circuit and only practicing how you want it to look. So if that means playing a game in the hallway with your boots on that normally sends your dog into complete overdrive, and taking your boots off and never going out the front door, if it looked great and the dog was engaged with you and you were playing productive great games, amazing. It may be it's a circuit where you're out of the front door and you're doing a lap around your car and it looked great and there was no lead pulling or lunging or barking or whatever it is that you might be struggling with, and then you get back in and then you do the games inside. Like, just practice how it looks great. Don't let them practice the stuff that they are obviously not enjoying and that is stressful for you. Just practice the good stuff. Find a way to do it within the limits and then grow the skills so that then you expand that circuit so that it then does become more of what we think is a walk. But yeah, just practice the good stuff and really try to limit where they get to do the stuff that is not productive and not enjoyable for them at the end of the day.
Oh, I love that. Practice the good stuff. That's going to be one of my new mottos, because so often people keep going out and keep repeating things that aren't working because that's all they think. They think they have to do it. It's like we said in the beginning, they think that that's what has to be done. But find the good stuff, create the good stuff, and then keep practicing the good stuff. And such good advice. Don't put your dog in situations that he's just not prepared to handle. It's just not fair to the dog, and it's not fair to you either, because you're putting yourself in a position where you can't help the dog as much as you'd like to. So yeah, I love that advice. Awesome. So excellent. And just to remind everybody about Nikki's book, you want to tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll sign off for today.
Yeah, I've got my very well thumbed copy. It was the copy that I used for doing the Audible recording. So it's called Stop Walking Your Dog. And it's about giving you a toolkit that you can use for your dog. So whether you've got a puppy, whether you've got an adolescent, an adult dog, a senior dog, every type of dog, there are always going to be occasions when you might want to switch out a walk for other activities. So to play those games, to learn various activities that you can do that are all really, really super easy, to have them before you need them is a great thing to do. But if you are really struggling with the dog that is not ready for those situations, ditch the walks and get some help to be able to do other things with them at home instead. And it could even be just, right now we're just about to hit some really warm weather in the UK. It could be that it's just too hot for your dog, or that it's too cold and too snowy or too icy. If you've got that toolkit of things, like, it doesn't matter, we can do some games at home. We don't have to go out the front door if it's not safe to do so, or if it's not productive to do so. So that's what it's kind of all about. And there's also a link to the 17 games that I describe in the book, so people can not just read it, they can also see me playing it with my dog to the best of his abilities.
Those are the best. I love that video.
It's real.
Yeah. Yeah, and the book, I mean, you held it up there a minute ago, but the book is not just like a little, 100 pages of
Oh, no,
tips.
no, no.
A lot,
No, it's a book.
lot of
It's a
stuff
book.
in there, and well worth the investment if walking a dog is something that you're struggling with. This might be the answer that you've been looking for. And you can get it not only in the paperback, but Kindle, and you said a minute ago, Audible too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love Audible.
Yeah, you can have
Yeah.
me in your ear talking it through.
Yeah, how exciting. Yeah, great. So yeah, so you can listen as you're walking, as you're walking your dog.
I do think people shouldn't listen to podcasts and books when they're with their dog.
Yeah.
I like them to be with their dog. That's just me.
Good point. Good point. Well taken.
You can listen to it in the car on the way to the park.
There we go. There we go. Yeah. Good. Okay.
Even if it's my book, don't
I
do
agree
it.
with you.
Don't do it.
Good job. Okay. All right, folks. So this is it for now. If you're listening to us on the replay and you have a question, go ahead and pop it in the comments. And one of us, if I see it, I'll tag Nikki, and actually you can tag Nikki also. And we'll make sure that you get the help that you're looking for. So make sure you catch Nikki's interview. You're on today, right?
Yeah.
Oh. So make sure you catch the interview. We go into these things a lot more. We talk a lot more about what's in the book and so forth. So yeah. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Marilyn. It's been a wonderful week.
Fun.
So
Okay.
happy to be part of it.
Yes. Thanks. Okay.